Dune Adventures in the Imperium. We have a group of players here for us, and I'd like you each to introduce yourself right after me. I'll go first because I'm the game master. I'm Jason Durall. I'm I guess my title is line editor, but I'm basically the sort of the literary part and editing part of the line, whereas Andy Peregrine is the line manager. So he's the real superstar of the product. I'm the one who gets to take a lot of credit. They've asked me to run a game for you all, and so here I am in the middle of dark Berlin on a Saturday night. And I would like each of you to introduce yourself, and then we'll get going.
All right. I am Kelly. You might know me from the Dungeon Dudes. If you do not know the Dungeon Dudes, we are a YouTube channel that covers Dungeons and Dragons content for 5th edition. And we also have a live play campaign that airs on Tuesday, and you can find it on YouTube on Fridays. So I'm very excited to jump in and try out this new system and see what that is all about.
And I'm Monty. I'm the other half of the Dungeon Dudes as well, and pretty excited to try out another awesome RPG.
Hi guys, I'm Cody. I am not with Dungeon Dudes. I run the YouTube channel Taking 20, where I pretend to know as much about game design as actual game designers. You might know me as the Dazzling Deviant from Saver Dice and Hater of Monks. And yeah, I just talk about RPGs, how to play them online. And I am thrilled today to jump into another system. And I kind of jumped at this opportunity when it was presented to me to come over here and try out some Dune action. So I'm really excited to see what Jason has in store for us today.
All right. Well, let us begin. Your characters are all part of the advance guard for House Atreides. As you know, the Imperium, this ancient and all-encompassing galactic empire, runs on the spice melange, which allows prescience and extended life, and in fact also makes space travel possible. House Atreides, your noble house that you were all retainers of, has been given the rights to mine spice on the one planet in the universe that it is found, Arrakis, a desert-bound planet. Even though Arrakis is very central to, it's the wheel that the universe turns around, I should say, or the hub of that wheel. It's kind of a backwater place where culturally unsophisticated, full of a savage and untamed group of people known as the Fremen, who are difficult to deal with. The sands of Arrakis are troubled by these gigantic sandworms that make mining the spice difficult. It's found out in the deserts of Arrakis, and so they have this whole system of harvesting the spice. House Harkonnen, the Atreides' greatest rival, was recently in charge of mining spice on Arrakis, and they lost the favor of the Emperor, who has given it to House Atreides. So you are leaving your beautiful home world of Caladan, a oceanic world with green forests, beautiful foggy mornings, fishing, wildlife, and you have crossed the universe via the spacing guilds, guild hayliners, to arrive on this desert planet of Arrakis. The first thing you notice about the place when you are when your spacing guild shuttle leaves the one of their hayliners is that the whole planet is just this sort of reddish sand-colored haze. Storms in various places, but for the most part, it looks the complete opposite of the home that you have all had living on Arrakis or on Caladan. And the shuttle takes you down to the spaceport in Arrakeen, the capital city, where you will be in charge of basically, or rather, you are members of the team who are going to help get things ready for the noble family of the Atreides. Duke Leto Atreides, his consort Jessica Atreides, and Paul Atreides. So you are part of this group that's going to be coming down and straightening things out and making sure that all of the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and also making sure that those diabolical Harkonnen have not left any traps or booby traps or any sabotage for you to have to deal with. So this is your lot, as you were thinking as you approach this sprawling, relatively flat, sort of sand-blasted city of Arrakis. You land, the doors open, and immediately you're just hit by a wave of heat and dust. Heat and dust will define your time here on Arrakis, you're fairly sure. And you have arrived at the spaceport, which is basically a big flat area, nothing fancy. And you can see all sorts of porters and stevedores and workers emptying your ship and beginning to load all of the gear and possessions and supplies onto ground cars to take into town. A woman, she is standing to the side. She's wearing robes, and she has what looks like a one of what you have heard is a still suit, a desert suit to protect her against the heat and water loss. And she's looking at you patiently as if she knows who you are and what you are there to do. And she's standing to the point where occasionally she gives orders to people who are loading up the gear you brought with you on your ship.
Well, I suppose we should talk to her, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I will. Seeing this woman, can I recognize any markings of that would indicate her station or rank or how she should be properly addressed? Do I know who this woman is?
Yeah, make a an understand check. This will be our first test of the day. Woo! And so and you are Sheriff Fell, a Mentat. Actually, before we go much further, I'll let you make that roll, and then we'll do a little bit of introduction for each of you.
Sure.
So you would take, I would say, probably your truth, drive, and your skill of understand. Add those together. So for you, that would be a 7 plus 6 is a 13. And then you would roll 2d20 and hope for low.
Alrighty. So my truth is 7. The truth will always be revealed. My understanding is 6, so that means I'm looking for under 13.
Correct.
Now I have a focus in data analysis and deductive reasoning. So looking around and listening to what this woman is saying, and based on her dress and station, is there any way that I can deductively reason out? Like,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that relevant in any way? I don't know.
Deductive reasoning would be you're looking at what's being presented to you and trying to make an analysis or a calculation about what could be the case. And so what that means is that because you have a focus that applies, that means that any roll of 6 or lower, which is your understand skill, becomes a critical.
Okay. So I rolled a 9 and a 3.
All right. Oh, I see my screen hadn't gone down a little more.
Yeah.
All
So I am Shara Fell, the Mentat, and I am a new graduate of the school, eager to experience the life in the noble house. And I have been sent to make sure that all the documents are in order. Particularly, all the documentation are regarding the spice trade is ready for the Duke's perusal. So this is an excellent position to prove myself and make sure that that everything is in ordered truth.
All right. The rest of you, I'm sorry, I skipped the intro. I was going to get to.
How dare you, sir? How dare you?
It's been a couple of weeks since I've GM'd, so I'm a little out of
Cody, do you want to go or do you want me
to? Yeah, I was going to go ahead, Talia.
So Talia is kind of standing in the back there, kind of just grimacing and looking out over the situation, letting her two colleagues kind of make the first move. She is a criminal, and she is mostly here. She is loyal to her house and is working for them, and kind of has swept her criminal past under the rug, and is really just here to make sure the job gets done. As far as anybody else knows, she's just here to fetch and carry and do the job that she was set out to do. And if things get rough or tough, she knows how to react to that. So she's standing there, knife at the ready. It's on her waist, but she's always ready to dive into violence if it comes to that. And she's just watching the situation.
And Marcus is probably stands a little bit taller than the other two, and he's a dark skinned man with a big sword with the House Atreides crest on it that he wears very proudly. He's eager, and I think you can see that in his attentiveness as he sort of scans his surroundings. Constantly looking for just any threat. He's really excited about this opportunity, but he's trying not to show that too much. Really, what he's here to do is to keep everyone safe. That's his official duty, but there is a little bit of a desire to really prove himself in his first field test, and he wants to make sure that this goes perfectly smooth. And he is overly attentive to making sure that that happens.
Excellent. All right. Well, Sheriff Fell, you look at the woman standing there, and you can tell that she is clearly, all evidence points to her being one of the Fremen, the indigenous people, or nearly so, of Arrakis. She is wearing a still suit of Fremen manufacture, which are superior to those made by offworlders. And above that, she's wearing robes that designate she's got some sort of an official position at the Imperial or the governor's residence, which is where you are all headed. All of the servants seem to the workers. They give her a lot of deference, and but there's also, you can tell from your analysis, because you did receive a critical there, which is you got a whopping total of 3 successes. That gives you the sense that she is somewhat apart from many of the others who are clearly city dwellers. They are not of the desert. And now you have received a success. This is the kind of stuff a Mentat would be able to calculate very easily. Now you have also gotten, you got 3 successes on this. I've given you information that would be good for 1. You can spend more of your successes to obtain additional information, or the rest can go into momentum pool. I leave that up to you to decide.
In the only other piece of information that I would want to see if I can discern at this stage would be a name.
All right. Well, you're probably not going to get that by observing her.
Okay.
All right. Although she waits for you patiently. And so which of you approaches her?
I will.
All right. She looks you up and down. Her eyes narrow, and you do notice when you get close that her eyes are blue. And by this blue, both the surrounds and the pupils are a darker colored blue. This is known to be a side effect of spice use, heavy spice use. Since everybody in the Empire ingests spice in some way or another, it makes your brain clearer, it relieves, helps you live longer. People eat it as candy, and they season food with it, but also for people who absorb a lot of it, it turns their eyes, the pigments in their eyes, this blue color. And her eyes are very, very blue. It's a little disconcerting.
Um,
And she waits for you to speak.
Hello. Are you the one we're supposed to be communicating with about the job we're doing on this planet right now?
Yes, she says. I am Mara Nasil, and I am the head housekeeper in the governor's mansion.
Hmm. And could you maybe give me the lowdown on what exactly is happening here? What should we be looking for? What's our task? What are we setting out here?
Right. She says the Harkonnens, and when she says the name Harkonnen, you can tell that there's a lot of anger there, but she's trying to mask it. She says they left unwillingly. Your people have been scouring the residents, looking for traps, for other other parting gifts they would leave you. You are responsible for determining that it is safe for your masters, family Atreides. And she looks at your features, all of them, and says, none of you look like Atreides. You are not noble born.
Hmm. You could say that.
And what of yourself? Did you serve the House Harkonnen
I did not.
here in the governor's estate?
She says, no, I did not. I was hired later. The early man for the Atreides, Idaho, Duncan, Idaho, he insisted that we hire all new staff, and I was brought on to oversee these city dwellers. And she looks around at some of the workers, and you can tell that they're definitely of a different social class. And
Has anyone entered the governor's manor since since the Harkonnens left, or will be the first to go in?
many have come. And yes, she says, then come, and I will explain as we go. And even though there are ground cars set up for all of these boxes and cargo containers that are being loaded up, she seems to want you to walk with her. And the city from the air did not look that big, and you could easily see the governor's mansion from the spaceport. So it doesn't look like it'll be a long walk.
Very well.
Right.
I
Now,
start following.
all right, it is hot. I mean, hot and dusty. That is very, very obvious. But it becomes even more so, almost oppressive, the heat. And she tells you then, go this way. And she looks again at you and she says, you did not bring any water.
We're not
Was that on
instructed.
our list? Did anybody bring water?
It's a customary gift when one enters the mansion.
Well, it sounds like our superiors failed to inform us that that was something we should be bringing. Either of you two have any spare water?
Do we have anything on us at all? Like any extra
Would it, well,
canteens or anything like that?
knowing that you were coming to a desert planet, would this have been something that you would have taken care to bring, or
Probably.
is it
As
something?
a my guess would be that as we have come as part of a official expedition, would we not be provided with the supplies of day-to-day living that we would be needed as part of the ship that we arrived with?
Yes, that would be all. I mean, the water is not so scarce that they don't have it at the mansion. You know this. But this notion of like showing up with a welcome gift of water is something that you haven't been told about.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, there are supplies, and like I said, the mansion has a water reservoir.
And who exactly is the gift for?
Um, she says it is presented to the the uh, the the governor.
The governor that would be the Duke, who has not arrived yet, correct?
Yes, it is a ceremonial gift.
I see. And
And
thus
when
the
she
gift.
says that, you can get a sense that when she says ceremonial, that these people, at least you know, are deeply, deeply bound by religion and tradition.
Then okay. If I say back to her, then very well. Then should we not prepare such a gift for the Duke's arrival?
Yes, there is a market nearby where one might find a water cellar.
Perhaps stop by the market first, then, before we carry on, just to acquire some water. Might be in our best interest. We want to make nice with the governor.
All right. And she looks like she is studying you all very carefully the whole way. And she notes when you mention this. Would anyone like to make a communicate test?
I will.
All right. Um, let me see if you have anything that is, and this would be your truth as well.
Okay, so
So
that's
you
I
can communicate.
make my own truth, and I'm intimidating, but I don't really think I'm being intimidating right now, so I don't know if that focus will
No,
come into
unless
play.
you
But
want to. I mean, you could say, I'm going to try to intimidate her, but
I don't feel like I'm pushing for the intimidation yet. But that still gives me a 12. So I'm gonna roll 2d20.
Ooh,
Uh-oh.
ah,
ouch.
all right. So,
Classic me.
all right. So you've got one success and one complication. Um, so let me see here. Oh, somebody's typing something. All right. Yes.
So yeah, I rolled a 20 and an 11.
All right. So the 11 is a success, the 20 is a complication. So what that means is that you get a feeling based on the way she's saying it, that she's not telling you the truth. With this whole like, oh, there's a ceremonial gift here. Because when you asked her, like, are you sure about this? She paused a little bit and seemed a little uncertain. And like she didn't know quite how to ask or answer that, which seemed a little weird considering she's she's talking about a tradition. But the complication is you clearly make it obvious to her that you know that she's not being legitimate or she's not being straightforward with you. Like
All
there's
right.
something you go, wait a second, I mean,
Yeah, so like as we're
tell me what
walking,
the hell is.
I start asking her like too many prying questions a little bit about the water. And so how many people often bring water to this governor? Did you yourself bring water when you arrived? Is
And
this a common formality?
all right. She basically breaks down at this point and she says, very well then, it is a test. I wish to know if you had the the discipline of water, if you understood that the water of Arrakis is more precious than any in the universe.
Hmm. So we don't need to go to the market and get water, is the truth.
It is always wise to have water on hand.
Well, fair enough.
Very well then, we can skirt the market. And she at this point leads you down a side street and you begin. And when you hit this, you go around the edge of the souk, which is, the big open market, which is gigantic, sprawling, all of these tents and little booths, noise coming from everyone. It's just a hubbub of activity, people in these desert robes, people in still suits, people in finery. It looks like all manner of stuff is being haggled, sold, negotiated. And then she kind of takes you around the edge of that and is cutting through sections.
Well,
What's that?
Jason, while we are sort of traveling here, I think perhaps Marcus would be trying to get a few he's looking for literally intel, right? This is a job. So he's wanting to maybe press her a little bit, especially because he knows that she's a recent hire and that she wasn't here for the Harkonnens. And that, basically Duncan brought her on because Duncan kind of worked with Marcus a little bit. And
Oh
so
yeah,
he's trying to get intel, you know, what kind of traps have we found so far? What has been too easy to find? What has been really difficult to find? How many casualties, have we lost a bunch of people? Just some of the basics to try to get some of the understanding as we travel around the market to the mansion.
All right, that seems very much the kind of thing. She can tell you that there have been some like explosives. There has been some very small explosives, but things, booby-trapped doors, containers. There have been some toxins. They basically had to scrub the entire place down to the stone. They are running sensors through it all the time, scanning for mysterious noises. They found a few bolt holes with like basically the equivalent of suicide assailants hiding out in them. They have removed an enormous amount of surveillance devices from the place, and also just a number of other things. The water had to be repurified. They were just all kinds of stuff like this. And so and a lot of the actual machinery that manages the residence was left in very poor shape. Door seals were loosened, and in some cases specifically broken to allow water to leave. It was just dreadful.
Well, then we must stay vigilant. I see.
Yes. I would like to ask Marcus, can you make a roll for me? This will be your understand and probably your duty.
Okay, so to clarify, I'm adding those two numbers together. Is that correct?
You are adding those two numbers
So
together.
that is an 11. I'm going to go ahead and roll 2d20. I got an 18 and a 16 for a total of 34.
All right. So Marcus,
Not great.
as you are going, you are so wrapped in discussing this kind of stuff with her, and I guess you're in your inner world of strategizing and trying to figure out what like ways you will try to avoid any problems here. And then you realize very quickly that this she seemed to be talking to you, moving sort of on as if on autopilot. And then you end up going to an alleyway, and you see a group of sort of rough looking fellows seem to be slipping out of shadows and near the entry to the ahead of you at the end of the alley. Your training, of course, kicks in, and you immediately recognize, like, as you turn around behind you, see that there are a few other people behind. They're all men, dressed in desert clothes and sort of rough looking other clothing.
I will just immediately kind of like, yes, that's wonderful. And I will just kind of turn my head down to my my companions here and say, ready yourselves. Do you see them behind us as well as in front? And I specifically not making any eye contact out and above to try to, hold off those last few elements that were onto them before something bad happens.
All right. And with this, one of the fellows, he steps up. He's a pretty rough looking guy, larger than the rest, and clearly some sort of a leader. He comes up to you, and he gives off a smell. Almost everyone on this planet, you notice, has a very strong smell to them. It might be their suits, it might be their clothes, because bathing is not a thing that you can do a lot when water is so precious. And the dirt and sand are just like caked into every pore and every crease on his face. He holds out fingers, also just black hemispheres of dirt in under each nail. And he says, "It'll be taking all your water and whatever finery you can spare." And with
Um,
that, some of the men, they seem to be reaching their hands under their tunics or their robes for what are probably knives.
I I'm going to just kind of pull my cloak back and put my hand on my knife. And I'm not going to like be aggressive, but I'm just going to say maybe we can come to a negotiation because demanding people's water and valuables right off the bat is not a great introduction. And some people who do that tend to find themselves in bad situations. And I'm hoping that that is slightly intimidating.
Hmm. Um, let us find out. All right. So,
What I'm hoping for, and I don't know, you can rule this differently, but I was hoping to combine my power and communicate. Power with power comes at a knife's edge,
absolutely.
and communicate being intimidation.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is the thing about the Dune rules is that a lot of these are situational. You'll figure out what sort of a drive works and connects with the discipline.
Come on,
Now, I have
come on.
another question for you, actually.
Yeah.
Before you make a roll, or did you already make a roll?
No, I haven't rolled
All
yet.
right. Do you have a trait that applies to this?
I am dangerous scum.
All right. So in the parlance of the rules, you can basically say something like, because I am dangerous scum, I can let them know that they are in trouble if they want to mess with me, which makes it easier.
So in this particular moment, I'm not only using the trait of dangerous scum, I'm using my power with the statement power comes at a knife edge, and my communicate with the focus of intimidation. So
Okay.
that should be a nice.
Yeah, it's practically overkill, but we'll see how well you do. So roll 2d20 here. And now you still have momentum from the previous thing if you want to throw an extra dice into that.
You know what? Sure, let's make it 3d20.
All right.
So I get an 11, an 11, and a 1 with my combined uh, power and communicate. That's I needed to roll under 14, so I got 1 critical success
Mhm.
and 2 other successes.
All right. So excellent. You basically give them, your eyes narrow, you give the guy a look. He suddenly realizes that he is probably not up to this. He is one of them takes a look, and you can see them taking a look at the sword hilt over Marcus's shoulder. He looks over at the woman who you are with, Mara. She has sort of faded back a little bit and has her hand up her sleeve. And you realize she's almost definitely got a knife there. And
How many assailants are there?
there look to be 6 or so.
Yeah, but we look tougher.
And amongst the just in a moment, looking at Mara, um, is she? Is there any chance that she is in league with these assailants, or that they have a known like? Looking at this situation and her reactions,
Hmm.
she led us down this alley.
She did. Why
Mm.
don't you make another understand roll?
Okay.
And let me know if you want to shift it around to a slightly different a drive. But I think that in your case, it's probably going to be truth as well.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, so let's get those going again. So the combined total is the same.
Hmm.
So I have a 19 and a 1, and I'm looking to roll under 13. So a critical success and a failure.
Yes, she seems quite angry actually at these people, and you can tell based on the way she is standing with her hand up her sleeve that she is probably ready to attack,
And
and not you.
I understand, but in the sentence that you just said, they're not angry at these people. Are these people known to her?
um probably not individually,
Okay.
other than just, these are thieves or scum.
Okay.
The city has a lot of fairly folk of low status. And based on what you know of Fremen, stealing water is probably the greatest crime that they can think of. On a planet where water is their greatest resource, other than the spice, um, stealing water is it's the equivalent of being a horse thief in the Old West.
So as tensions are rising here, and I've said that the intimidating statement, I'm going to just kind of cap it off with, it would be in all of our best interests if you let us pass in peace.
Um, he looks at his men, and he notices that some of them are definitely faltering with their own enthusiasm about this, which seemed to be a very simple gig of let's take some water and some valuables off some soft looking outsiders. And now they're suddenly realizing that they are probably messing with a much more dangerous group of people than they had imagined. And so, with that, he says to you, watch yourselves. And then he and his men all sort of fade back and move back very quickly to the point where you notice they probably break into runs after they get outside of striking distance.
I take my hand off my blade and turn to my compatriots here and just say, I think that we should keep our eyes about us, make sure that we don't run into any other problems.
Hmm.
I'm going to. I'd like to turn to Mara and say to her, Mara, we have come here for purpose and to serve the Duke directly and dutifully, and not be led down dark pathways as we dawdle towards our purpose. You are ostensibly leading us towards our task, and I suggest that we do so directly and immediately without these sort of diversions
Hmm.
from here. And I've got it here that I've got discipline and duty. I have a duty to the truth and a discipline of command. And I kind of just want to like my my intent here is to say let's get like we've been had two distractions now of this business of water and dark alleyways that are tarrying us from our purpose here.
Yes, she looks at you for a moment, and then she says, "The Duke has good taste in his servants. Yes, let us go to the estate. It is right around here." And with that, she leads you post haste to the estate. And you get a sense that this was probably another of her tests. She might not have intended for you to get robbed or injured, but she definitely wanted to see how you would react to just the sort of rough and tumble
Hmm.
uh, group. And you've clearly passed some sort of a test, in her eyes at least. And then you arrive at the residence. It is a big building, very well fortified, large slab-like stones that have been just blasted by years and years and years of the sandstorms that wash over the city. The Even though the big shield generators that keep it mostly safe, keep a lot of that sand out, they aren't on all the time, and so therefore the city is instilled, filled with sand and subject to its ever ever endless abrasion. And you enter the residence. The door seals. You notice that all of the doors are sealed so that not a drop of water or moisture in the air escapes. And you are introduced to the staff there, a group of both city and desert Fremen. The difference between them is not immediately obvious, but their bearing and their just the way they carry themselves is fairly easy to pick up for a mentat like yourself. And then I'm going to just do a sort of a fade for a couple of days as you begin to settle into the residence and figure it out and its rhythms and the routines that are being established here. What would you like to be doing over the course of these next few days as you're making your mark on the place? And it is, rather than being, sort of quiet or anything like that, it is a hubbub of activity. But one thing you do notice is everyone is very wary, and security protocols have been put in place. You start seeing a lot of Atreides house guards showing up, and each of you is also given a still suit. Not you don't need to wear them all the time, but they are essential for desert survival.
Hmm.
So I mean, obviously we're not the first ones from Atreides here, right? We're not the initial party that's landed. There's been an establishment of
Right, there have been
maybe months or a few weeks or something along those lines.
A few weeks.
Okay,
First,
so
yeah.
I'm sorry. You had asked what we were doing, and I would probably be making an assessment of the people, right? Because the people, in my opinion, are probably the biggest threats, more so than anything in the walls or any hard booby traps. And I would be trying to kind of get a good understanding of the ratio of people that are from House Atreides and the Fremen, because and I'd be looking at their eyes and whatnot, and trying to see, how much do we stand out being from House Atreides amongst everyone here? Are we the 3 or 4%, or is it a little bit, and we very much stand out, or is it is it a little bit of a more evenly split ratio of Atreides and people that were previously stationed here in the mansion?
All right. That's a lot to answer at once. And so, yeah, I would say, first of all, you're clearly at some sort of a like an there, if I might say, there are 3 or 4 tiers that are obvious. There is the royal family, the noble house. If your last name is Atreides, then you are at the top of the pecking order within the household. The second tier are the people like Duncan Idaho, Thufir Hawat, Gurney Hellick, Dr. Wellington Yue, and whatnot. And in some ways, probably the Lady Jessica, because she's not married to the Duke. She's just his consort. But
and forgive me, Jason, are they already here? I thought we were supposed to arrive before them, right?
Duncan Idaho is the only one of the group that has come already, and he is out dealing with the Fremen.
Okay.
And he is out and about there. So basically, you are dealing with the household staff, and then, like, after those people who are sort of the main functionaries within the house, then the next level is you all, and some of you report directly to them, or you report directly to the Duke. And then below that is like the guards and minor guard captains and household staff and technicians and engineers and the laborers and craftspeople who all make up part of this gigantic household.
So we're not overly outnumbered by the Fremen, is in essence.
No.
Okay.
In fact, there with this arrival, you did as you landed, there were a small squads of Atreides soldiers with their the Atreides house colors moving in and filling the barracks. And so you will actually, as a sword master, you have a certain status with them that
Excellent.
you I guess functionally work as a captain, although you're a sort of a captain at large. But yeah, you train them, you drill alongside them, and will lead them into battle. But they might have an intermediary who is basically the one who handles discipline and makes sure that everybody gets their their uniforms cleaned and all of that kind of stuff. And Talia, what are you doing?
I imagine that since Marcus is kind of surveying the people, I am going to spend my few days kind of just wandering and getting a lay of the land. I'm looking for um, kind of what the day-to-day life is like here, trying to see if I'm noticing anything unusual, taking note of anything potentially dangerous, or just kind of the lay of the area, more or less, and paths and dark alleyways, any places that are unfavorable or favorable to us as we get to know the area and settle in.
Well, yes, you are. It's pretty obvious that there is not a lot of trust with anyone in town and the Atreides. The Harkonnens, people didn't like them very much. You get a sense of that pretty obviously. But also, there's a question of no one really knows what to think of the Atreides because this place is such a backwater, so isolated from the royal court and from the the emperor and his sphere. Um, there's a sense of distrust to almost any off-worlders who show up and start telling people what to do and how to do it. Um, and obviously, everyone recognizes that the only reason anyone is on Arrakis is the spice. And so you do notice that it is the spice and water are sort of the two central cores to how people behave and the way they act. And you also, as a criminal, you notice that there is a very robust trade in both illegal and illicit water dealing and spice. Occasionally, it seems like there's a bit of spice smuggling and whatnot going on.
Uh, am I noticing key locations where people tend to make these secondhand deals, like the criminal? Can I get a vibe of the criminal underworld going on in this area?
You get a well, a lot of it happens outside the main souk, the great market.
Yeah.
And you get a sense that there are a lot of smugglers that are bringing spice in from outside where it's being harvested. It's normally very carefully monitored and obvious, with all manner of security and scrutiny. But you get a sense that there are sources coming into town from that are not legitimate and are not coming in with the official stamp, and
Hmm.
that stuff is being sold, sometimes cut, adulterated at a very low, lesser quantity, but also is being sold for much cheaper than the good stuff. Um,
Hmm.
as members of the Imperium, of a noble house, a house minor within the Imperium, you know that the Emperor, Emperor Shaddam, owns everything. He owns everything, every planet, every house, every man, woman, and child, and everything they own or that they possess is owned by the emperor. That is how this all works. It is, he is the owner of the universe, and everything else that everybody has, they have by his grace and his generosity. And so all spice that is harvested is technically belongs to the emperor and goes to him, but it goes through the house that is allowed to harvest it, and they are allowed to take a share of that, to for their troubles, so to speak. So smuggling is not only, you know, it's not only a crime against the house that harvests it, but it's a crime against the emperor himself.
Hmm.
So so there you go.
Taking note, taking note.
Yes. Um, and um, Sheriff L, Mentat, what are you doing in this time?
Well, I have a very official duty to account for all the documents regarding the current spice operations and make sure that they are all entirely up to date and complete. And thus, I in fact even have a contract with the spice mining community that I need to review and go over and make sure that all these potential criminal activities that Talia is uncovering are factored in to this entire documentation in this report, so that these discrepancies can be accounted for and punished, because
Hmm.
this injustice against the emperor cannot stand.
All right. Um, I would like you to make a roll. Now, you can tell me if this is something that a trait might apply to, or even one of your talents. And basically, what this is an analysis of the information that you are collecting. These are the records. And you know, of course, that everyone keeps two sets of books. I mean, there's the official, this is what we report to the emperor, and then this is the house's records. And this shows what's actually happening here. And the question is, how far apart are those?
Mm.
And how much fear is there that one will be exposed? You know,
Well, I
Is it
have a
possible?
up one at a
I
time.
was going to say, is it possible to assist, seeing
Absolutely.
as like I'm relaying information? Marcus, I'm sure Marcus's information is also relevant. So we're almost kind of relaying the information on the people and the area back to Shara, so that we can take note of any discrepancies or problems, I guess.
Hmm.
Well, I have I my traits, of course, are that I am direct and clinical, and I have mental conditioning. But I also have this talent called intense study, which says that once per scene, I can use my understand skill on a single skill test instead of any other, and I am counted as having a focus for that test. Although I wonder if what I'm looking at would that understand would be the skill I would want to look at anyways, and using my focus and data analysis to do that. And I'm looking for the answers here about what is going on. So I think that, you know, that because I am going through all this data analysis, the truth is always revealed eventually, and the data will reveal the truth. It is
All
about
right.
sorting through that information to find out what is true and what is not, because um, numbers don't lie, but they don't always paint the true the picture of the truth. Numbers must be interpreted, and it is our duty to make sure that we understand that data.
All right. Excellent. So then so you would say you're applying the direct and clinical trait? Is that it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So basically this is a what you're getting a sense of is that yes, these numbers have been doctored. So I will lower the difficulty of this test to 2. Um, a difficulty, it was a difficulty 3, it's a difficulty 2. Talia, based on your own understanding of how the criminal organization work, I'm going to let you assist. By this, you get to roll a single d20, and if it is successful, you add any of your rolls to Shara's.
Okay. And is it the same? Am I using the same drive and skill as she
Yeah.
did?
Yes.
And
Here
that
we go.
was truth and what was it again, Monty? It was
Understanding.
Yeah, truth and
okay.
understanding.
Truth and
It's a
understand.
very popular combo.
All right. I get an 11,
Oh,
which I think actually for me is a failure because my truth is 6. Or no, truth and discipline, 6 and 5, 11.
All right.
I just made it. I
All
am able
right.
to relay the information almost well,
Okay.
just well enough.
So add 1 success to your roll, Shara.
And so I still roll 2 dice though.
Uh yes.
Okay.
Uh, Unless you well, yeah, the momentum that you earned from previous has long since vanished.
So I have an 18 and a 6. Now a 6 is below my understanding. So if I'm using my focus, does that 6 still count as a critical success?
It does. So yes, and so you've basically gotten yourselves 3 successes here, which is plenty.
Cool.
You Understand, and you've got one additional momentum. You begin looking at the records, and you realize that something doesn't add up. There is a particular harvester called Alpha Barex 8. Um, and it is attached to the Graf von Dreysen, a carryall. Um, and you notice that their numbers are incredibly odd, erratic, and they're quite low. You study the patterns by which they are traveling, and they seem to be taking a lot of odd diversions and going into areas that they should be fairly played out. And there's just a lot of irregularities in the records that you're seeing here that indicate something is up. And the quota is irregular across most of the harvesting units because it's difficult to know how much spice you'll be able to get in an area. But there seems to have a lot of strangely periodic dips, and you notice a almost a pattern that is formed there. And that is one thing mentats are extremely good at, is noticing patterns in a lot of data.
Hmm. And so the pattern here would indicate that this the operator here, Alpha Barracks 8, is not living up to expectations, or is hiding something, or is potentially grifting from the operations here.
Of Well, you would think that based on what you've heard, that the Harkonnens uh, do not handle failure very well. They did not. And they were pretty cruel as masters. The same people worked for them that are working for you now, because spice miners and harvesters, these are skilled laborers. They can't be thrown away. And the Atreides certainly don't know the first things about spice mining.
So, I have a question here based off of this information that Shara has sort of uncovered. When, so if this individual is mining, are we like 100% certain that however it's being delivered from the mining point to the delivery point is all this individual, or is it going through multiple hands?
Let me explain.
Because that is very important.
Let me explain to you how spice mining works. You have these gigantic floating machines called carryalls. They basically process spice. They've got a whole spice processing thing in them. If you can imagine, it's almost like an oil refinery in the air, like flying around. And the metaphor of oil and spice is an obvious one that has been made many, many times. So anyway, these carryalls, they sort of fly around, and then they put down little spice harvester units. And the spice harvester units, well, I say little, but they're gigantic machines, and they basically sift through the sand and collect spice, which is a slightly different density than sand. And they basically collect it, and then they basically get pulled up into the harvester or into the carryall, unload their spice, and then are dropped back down again to continue to harvest. And they usually have ornithopters circling, patrolling the areas to watch out for sandworms.
So basically, this is an entire team, right? So if this is an entire team, then these numbers could implicate the entirety of this operation, or these numbers could implicate maybe somewhere along the lines there's one or two misbehaving miscreants that might be pulling from the supply.
Well, a harvester is I'm trying to give you a good image about what kind of a thing, like what kind of size it is. They might have upwards of 24 people working on one of these things, and it would be, I mean, almost, if you could imagine taking let's say 8 garbage trucks and sort of stacking them 4 by 4 and 2
so
high.
That's how much supply is missing. It's not a little bit of supply, it's a lot of bit of supply.
Not like a barrel here, a barrel there. There are a considerable amount that's going missing, and it's going missing on a regular, I mean, there are patterns that you can gather by how much mining they're doing and where they're going and all of this. And this is where the mentat calculation comes in. is to be able to look at this vast amount of seemingly just minute, tedious detail and go, well, this is how much fuel they were using. These were the areas they were in. These are the hours the men were working. This is how much they were turning into the carry-all, how much was being processed. So something doesn't add up.
It's an excellent uncovery, Shar.
Mm. Yeah, and and like I say, this is the sort of thing where you can tell me how you communicate with each other on this sort of thing if you dine together,
Mm.
or if you once you get to the residence and immerse yourself in your own things if you have very little contact.
For myself, I would imagine that since we are all outsiders here, we can confide in one another.
I
And
agree.
and we knowing that there are a few others that we can trust here, at least we can trust each other. And with this information uncovered, I would share this with Talia and Marcus and say, there, this inconsistency reveals that there is complicity.
It from what I gathered walking around, there's a lot of smuggling and backhand deals going on around here, and nobody seems to be doing anything to stop it. So this is a major case that we're looking at right now where a lot is going missing and nobody else seems to be doing anything about it. So
Indeed, if we are supposed to secure the manor, how can we do so if so many of these dealings, these underhanded actions, the complicity is taking place without any justice being dealt to it?
Precisely. I agree.
so what should our next course of action be, do you guys
Well,
think?
with that, I might take the firm yoke of the Game Master control and steer us to a cutscene where it is with this you find yourselves in an ornithopter flying across the sands of the Imperial Basin towards where the what's its name again? Oh, the Graf von Dreysen, the carryall that handles this, the smaller harvester, where it is on patrol, basically hovering above the sands, monitoring a whole bunch of smaller harvesters. And yeah, you have a pilot. She is steering you across. You're all in your, this might be the first time you've gotten to wear a still suit. It is probably not the most comfortable garment, but again, it is your apparently this is the barrier between life and death out here on the desert. It keeps all of your body's water intact. You've got little nose tubes so that anything you breathe out through your nose, that moisture will go back into the suit and recycle. Your waste and feces are recycled. All of your sweat is soaked up by the suit and put in little catch pockets, and you can drink it through a little straw. Normally, you usually wear a mask over the lower half of your face so that obviously all of this moisture coming out of your mouth is not lost or evaporated. But typically when people are speaking together or you're in the sealed cockpit of an ornithopter, you can have your masks off. And yes, so what kind of preparation would you have had to go out into the desert to confront this situation or look more closely into it? And I should say, Sheriff Fell, your Mentat calculation is such that these miners all work out in the desert, far remotely from civilization and from the Arakeen, the city that the residence is in. There's no way to just summon them to Arakeen and have them even hope to show up if they're criminal. You're going to have to go out and confront them, or at least examine the situation firsthand. And so what precautions would you have taken?
Beyond ensuring that we have ample supplies of needed necessities like water and our suits and everything, I can see that I have a knife and a shield belt. Um, and we clearly have our own muscle within our group of people. Do we know within I guess the only other preparations for my research are, again, this graph on Dreisen is, do we know who is in charge and how many people are supposed to be here? And if there's any way that we can determine whether or not they have weapons of their own, just in case the situation requires aggressive forms of negotiation.
Okay, there are two people on the Graf von Dyson. The one that you would probably want to speak to is the Spice Operations Officer. Her name is Janice or Jaris Obregon. I will type this into the channel here so you can have that. And she seems to be the second in command of the Grief under a man named Globus, who every indication is that he's more of a manager, and she would be the one who actually knows the books and keeps count of actual spice production.
And
And
beyond that, I would only want to bring like some sort of summary or report of like that I can just perhaps this is all a misunderstanding, and perhaps if they're just shown the inconsistency, they will be able to account for it immediately. And so having some sort of prepared document that outlines what the inconsistency is and how it might be addressed, I think. And is there a way that we can communicate back to others that are at the Capitol or at at the mansion in case there's a crisis?
yes and no. Okay, there's also some other stuff you asked about that I'll get to. There's probably going to be in the Harvester dozens of people working there, and it's grimy, dirty work. Lots of people on board. Do they have weapons? Probably. Everyone's got a personal knife or something like that, or maybe mala pistols, which are basically dart throwers or slug throwing pistols, but it's not the kind of thing people are actually allowed to take on their job. So there might be some weapons on board, but there shouldn't be. Now, one thing you do get is when you get onto the ornithopter, your pilot, she seems to be Fremen. She gives a look over at your shield generator and your personal shield, and she says you won't be needing that, and you shouldn't be needing that at all.
Based on my experience, we will.
No, you don't understand. The shields give off a vibration that drives the worms mad. You activate one of those out on the open desert and you will be calling worms from every direction. Have you seen a worm? She says as you're buzzing across the desert.
Hollow vids, never in person. What about you? And I kind of look over to my colleagues here.
No, just heard about them. Never seen one.
Not in the flesh.
Pray you don't. She says, but no, the shield, you should either leave that here or just don't turn it on.
I want to, just out of curiosity, do I believe her? I mean, is this something based
Yes.
off of the information given to me from other people than just this one pilot? Do I think that she's maybe saying that just to like set a trap for me of like, oh yeah, you don't need your shield, buddy. You're fine. That'll attract worms. Or do I actually believe she's telling the truth?
She is telling you the truth. This has
Okay.
been told to every house soldier. Atreides all have they all carry personal shields, and they're all trained. Everyone knows how to train with a personal shield. All nobles have them throughout the Imperium. And of course, about the Holtzman effect, which is the fact that if a laser gun fires at a personal shield and the two collide, it creates a subatomic explosion, which kills pretty much everybody nearby. So that's one of the great things that keeps a lot of nobles alive, is the fact that mutually assured destruction means that any assassin who goes after one with a long range, like a laser pistol, will probably end up killing themselves. Now, all of the Atreides, based on Duncan Idaho's early scouting, have been told that no, we can't be wearing shields. We can use them if we're on stony ground, like within cities, but out in the desert, their use is forbidden, and a lot of the soldiers are not happy about that. And so they're having to adapt their battle tactics to incorporate fighting without shields.
So I'm noticing here that under my assets, I have contacts with gangs and a friend within the underworld. You had asked what sort of preparations we made. Is there any way that I could have used those contacts to try to confirm our suspicions and get the lowdown on sort of underworld dealings and whether or not this Alpha Barracks 8, that's the name of the location we're going to, right?
That is the name of the exact harvester that you are investigating.
Am I able to ask around with my contacts to find out, like, if spice has been making its rounds through the underworld? That can I trace it back, I guess, is my question.
Yes, you can make a roll. I'm just typing some of this information in to your to the Slack channel. You can.
I think you're thinking the same thing I was thinking, Kelly. Like, okay, great, they're grifting, but where are they taking it to if they're harvesting it out in the desert? Like, how are they getting it off planet?
Yeah, so hopefully with it's a whole underworld operation that people know about, and that way my contacts can kind of give me a bit more intel into
All right.
how that's all going.
Okay. I don't even think that you're going to need to make a roll for that, because you're
Using my assets?
oh yeah, you're using an asset which generally relies on, that, but also it's just simply what you do.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you're actually delving into your own idiom here. So you talk to people, and yes, you gather that there is a particular harvester. They call it the Alberic, which you recognize as a shorting of Alpha Barracks 8. And you recognize that they're definitely working with smugglers.
Yeah. Okay.
And so based on that information, it's probably the equivalent of, something fell off the back of the truck, so to speak. But yes, every so often, it seems to me that there is definitely spice being passed over to smugglers who either smuggle it into town or, more likely, smuggle it off planet.
Right.
Now, how smugglers manage to get spice off the, outside of the planetary orbit when the Spacing Guild controls all travel, that's an interesting question.
And nobody has any specific answers about that. That's kind of just a mystery that's left to the people who know.
Yeah, well, it's one of these things that when people start asking questions, then they have to answer they have to do some things about it.
Yeah, so I tiptoe around any problematic questions, but it definitely sounds so just to clarify, it definitely sounds like spice is being smuggled. Like there's no misprints here. I'm kind of confirming the theory that yes, it's being removed, it's being put back into circulation in town or sent off planet somehow.
Yeah, you would guess, and based on Shara's own investigations, that it's clear that some of they're like going out into areas that are pretty played out. You would guess that might be a drop off.
You're going to use the word of lowlifes and smugglers to confirm my immaculately conceived calculations.
Sherry, you're dealing with a lowlife, and I gotta tell you, some of them are the most trustworthy people you'll ever meet. They don't mess around. They'll put a knife up to your throat and let you know what's gonna happen before digging through all sorts of lies and BS to try to come up with reasonable answers. So, yes, I trust my contacts, and I would say that if they're telling me that things are being smuggled off planet, then there's no reason for them to lie about that.
Mm.
Your contacts tend to have a rather flexible definition of truth that serves their purpose, not the those of duty.
Shara, in my experience, the truth is simple. For this amount of spice to be missing, there can be no doubt that the entire rig has to be implicated. We are not talking about a few barrels. We're talking about pallets, truckloads. That does not go unnoticed by anyone at this facility. And you should expect restlessness to come from our inquiry.
Is it possible that there is another possibility? People consume the spice. Is it possible that these people are not, rather than smuggling it, are using it for themselves?
It's a lot of spice.
It's a lot, but not necessarily smuggling it out. But is there a possibility that it isn't leaving the planet? That there is somebody that is consuming it or is stockpiling it for some other purpose here?
That's possible. My contacts tell me that some of it's leaving the planet and some of it is recirculating here. So where all of the spice is ending up could answer that question. I do think that whatever this operation is, it's well orchestrated, and it's not a dirty job. It's a well-defined job. This has been going on for some time, I imagine, and the people running it know that. And the
Well, then we
people
should
above know that.
Well, then we should prioritize finding out where it is going. If we are simply here to eliminate this one rig's issue without finding the cause or the individuals responsible for establishing this connection, it may simply be treating the ailment rather than the root cause.
Like Jason, am I totally off my rock on that notion that it could not be leaving at, like, based on the data, like, is it just absurd to assume that it wouldn't be going elsewhere, or because you mentioned how difficult it would be to get it off the planet given the
Yes.
context of the
Well,
spacing guild?
the issue is basically if anyone wants to make any money with it, they're going to take it off the planet. I mean, it's 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 readily available, um, like out in the desert. Anyone who can, basically, there are all sorts of clandestine spice harvesting operations, and probably lots of prospectors who go out and try to get their own. So its real value is off the planet in the Imperium, where its price multiplies a thousandfold. In fact, the imperial currency unit is based on the market value of spice at any given time. That's how central it is to the economy of the Imperium. So definitely, if somebody wants to make a lot of money, they're going to get it off the planet, which is what most of the smugglers, their real duty is. Their real job is to try to do is get that off planet somehow. Now, realistically, they've got deals cut with the Spacing Guild that enables the Spacing Guild to sort of look the other way when clandestine ships sort of fly up and dock within the Hayliners, and nobody asks any questions. No taxes are assessed, and it's just taken to another planet, and they sort of exit the Hayliners
Okay.
before everybody else does. So you think, in all likelihood, yes, taken off planet eventually.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, for personal use, there's some spice that ends up, hitting the markets. But also, Arrakis is not a densely populated planet at all. Um, Even though the cities are crowded, there's really not. That's because there's not that many other places to live. So it's really difficult to live out in the desert. And there are scattered communities of Fremen, little pockets they call sieches, here and there, but they're, I don't know, a few thousand at most, based on imperial surveys.
Hmm. Well, anything else that we should discuss? Or Marcus, did you prepare anything, I guess, before we, or like, was there any, I don't know. Are we still doing
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I'll basically, show him my blade or excuse me, show Talia my blade. The, like, as I said earlier, the implication here is that the entire rig is participating or know about. Our duty is to suss out whatever additional information we can find out about where this is going and put it into this.
hmm.
The inquiry is most likely going to get rough.
All right.
Could
So
you imagine if you were in the place of any of these miners? 3 or 4 of us individuals from the Imperium show up asking questions. How would you handle it? You should be prepared.
I'm always prepared.
all right. As a GM, I'd like to interject here and ask, we're obviously, pressed for time. So I would like to say you've got a choice. You can go to the carryall or you can go to the harvester. Which would you choose to go to first?
What do you guys think?
Uh,
The
oh
harvester
man,
would confirm the amount being harvested and would confirm Shara's numbers. She could literally inspect it and go, "Yep, exactly what I thought. These numbers
the
are getting pulled."
Which
yeah
one
the
would have Jairus and Glavas out of these two people that we where
They
which
are
one?
both, they are both on the carryall, the Graf von Diesen.
Let's go
hmm,
there.
okay.
I'm fine.
The carryall might give us more clues because the carryall might be what is the one diverging from course to ship the stuff elsewhere. I think
Yes.
so.
So,
All right.
then we cut back to our cutback, and you are both, or all of you, are on the ornithopter, and you head out, and then you see across, as you cross the endless drifting sands of Arrakis, ridges of stone here and there. And you've been told that if you ever find yourself crashed on the plane, you got a little crash course in desert survival before heading out, and you were told obviously how to use your still suit. You were told walk without rhythm because rhythm tends to attract sandworms, and the other thing, of course, there's an emergency kit in your ornithopter that has like a tent and all sorts of supplies that can keep you alive while you radio for help. And you've also told seek rock because basically the sandworms can move through loose sand easily enough, but they can't move through stone. And so whenever you can find like a rocky outcropping or something like that, that's the safest place in the universe to be.
Hmm.
And Arrakis is, or Arakeen, the city you're on, is built on a giant rocky slab, a landmass. So that's basically wherever you find a big stony landmass, that's where people live in Arrakis or underground, which is pretty rare. Um, so now you see this giant harvesting thing. It's like a factory floating in the air. Heat comes off of it in every direction. Smoke billows out of 100 different ports, and sand just pours out of it as the spice is further refined. And You see a few ornithopters buzzing around it, and there's a landing bay within, and you enter this gigantic landing bay in this carryall. And it moves very slowly, sort of uh, crossing the desert, and you can see smaller harvesters moving under it, following pattern. They almost look like beetles down at this distance. And although the thing is massive, and this um, landing bay is gigantic, when you get in, suddenly then it almost switches to cramped and dingy. Like everything is just crammed together in this small area. There's no space whatsoever left for human comfort. Um, as soon as you enter, even though you've probably got your nose filters in and your, maybe your masks on, but the scent of spice is just redolent in the air. That sharp cinnamon smell, along with oil, grease, and that electrical burnt ozone sort of a smell you get from heavy industry. And a woman walks up to you. She's in a also a still suit, but what looks like a pilot uniform over that. And she says, "Hello, welcome to the Grief. I'm Janice or Jairus Obregon." And she seems really friendly. In fact,
is Talia taking the lead here, or
Am I?
Please,
Okay.
Talia.
I step forward. Good day. We're just here to check up on a few things. We might have some questions for you and the crew regarding some papers that we were going over, and just looking into the shipping of spice and seeing how that's all going.
okay. She leads you through the ship as she's going, and you can tell. I mean, this place is it's like almost like a submarine in the use of space. Very cramped. People just pushing by each other constantly. You see conveyor belts moving packages around, compressed bales of spice. And then, the noise is incredible. And she says, "My office is soundproofed. Come this way." So she leads you through into the guts of this gigantic machine. You notice she called it the Grief, which is, again, probably a, shortening of the Graf von Diesen. And she gets you into a very small room. Barely the four of you can all fit at once. There's a table, papers are everywhere. Little screens, and records, and she opens up basically the equivalent of a thermos and pours you each a cup of spiced tea, and lifts, and she says, "So we've already done a production quota assessment. Is there a problem?"
Many.
Yeah. Shara, if you wouldn't mind bringing out the papers, please.
Yeah, I simply like what I would like to do, because I don't have the actual numbers in front of me, but is there a set of questions that I could ask about the data that could, if cross-examined, entrap her, essentially, because the truth is always revealed eventually. So what I'm wondering is, if I were to ask her, like, and how many days of fuel did you have, and how many days of fuel then did you have, and how many days of fuel then you have, and then I end that by saying, so if that is true, you have produced this much spice, but these numbers would indicate that, like, basically math, like putting the math and the revelation of truth in front of her and saying this is what it must be, and then commanding her and saying, account for this.
All right, that seems like a pretty solid thing. So are you going to invoke your trait?
Yes, I want to be very direct, very clinical about it as I break down the numbers.
Okay, and so this then also would be a truth. I mean, it would probably be truth and discipline.
Okay. And what I want to kind of finish that set of statements with is like, explain this, like tell me what has happened. And and so I have a focus called under my discipline, I have a focus called command.
Yes.
So I want to essentially present the data and say, tell me what is going on here.
All right. Then let the dice fall where they may.
Cool.
Oh
So
no! Oh no! Come on, bro.
let's see. So we got truth. My truth is 7. My discipline is 7. So I'm looking for under 14 here.
Yeah, and since you're using command,
Oh,
okay.
You gotta
That was
call
a
him
very
out.
poor roll,
that's a 19 and a 15.
which both are failures. Now you can
Ah.
spend. You have determination. You have a point of determination, which you have not spent yet. Each of you has a point of that. You can
Okay.
spend that for a reroll
Okay.
if you would like.
Is it possible to also assist like in the moment? Is that something that I can jump in and like can I use my skills to try to
I
uh,
would
Hype man.
what I'm imagining here is again my character is extremely intimidating. And
Mhm.
so I imagine that like in this moment that Shara is like, tell us what you know. I could be standing next to her with my knife, like fiddling with my knife in my hand, just
An
being
open
like,
display of a weapon. All right.
just like I pull it out and I'm like, shining my blade or like cleaning it or
Okay.
something. And I just maybe mumble like, not telling us is could lead to a lot of trouble with the higher ups.
All right. So I would say then, yes, that would be the equivalent of an assist. And you are, so you'll roll one die. And if you are successful, you can uh, do that. You could also spend a point of determination and have it be an auto success. But for your role of the assist, you would probably want to be using justice and discipline or justice and communicate. I'll let you pick.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna go with communicate.
All right.
Um,
It's body
yeah,
language.
yeah, I'm using body language and I'm intimidating.
Okay, so
So
Talia, roll your 1d 20 first.
I get a 2. So that would be then 2 successes.
All right.
and I got a 10 on my roll, which is a success as well.
Okay, well, wait. Sharafel, you're actually rolling 2 dice. You're re-rolling your
Oh, when you reroll everything.
you re-roll everything. So we'll say
Okay.
one of them is success. So you're actually going to be getting a number of successes here.
That's another 2.
Wow.
So that's 4
So-
successes then.
So 4 successes plus the additional success from Talia's assist is a ridiculous number of successes. Yes, you lay this out so thoroughly and walk her into, she's like looking and then she basically, it's almost like a light clicks on in her
Mhm.
mind.
I
And-
imagine that I had to use the reroll because I realized that like I'm going so much into the math
Mm.
that she clearly doesn't like partway through. I'm like, oh, she's losing. She can't add up all these numbers.
Right. Yeah, she's wondering, she's getting a bit frustrated and wondering why you already asked that. You already asked, and then, but then eventually she's like, it's, she says, it's, let me get there. She says it's Metzos. He's the captain on the Alberic. Yes, it's clear it can be only that. He's selling to smugglers. I suspect. Yeah,
Don't worry
she
about
says,
that. I'm sorry, but I apologize.
yeah, she says I've suspected it, but I think it's obvious that Metzos is the one.
And he's or Metzos is on the
On
actual.
the Alberic.
Hmm. Do I
Yeah.
believe her, or does this feel so? I'd like to gauge if she's giving this information because she's scared of us and is just trying to push it off on somebody, or if this sounds genuine.
All right. Make a roll of your that would be understand and truth, probably. Yes, truth and understand. So you've got a 10.
All right. Is there any momentum currently from that
Yeah,
last?
you've got
From rolling
Yeah,
over.
okay. I'm gonna use a momentum because 10 isn't. I'd like it to be higher, so I'm gonna up my chances here and roll. That lets me roll 3d20.
that does if you
All
spend
right.
a point of momentum.
I'm gonna use one momentum,
It should have been.
and I get a 16, 13, and 11. None of them
All
are
right.
10 or lower.
Okay, so now you can also spend, if you wish to spend a determination and re-roll those. That would leave two of you without any determination. But
Well,
we're in
I feel like we're near the end here, so I'm gonna go ahead and do it. I'm gonna
All right.
re-roll that whole thing. Getting 2 successes.
Much
Okay.
better.
Yeah, that's 2 successes. Neither of them is a critical because your understand is only 4. So, you didn't get that, but you do get 2 successes, and you realize that she is not being forthcoming with you, and she is clearly sort of pushing this off at um, Mezzos, but she's speaking in half truths.
So I'm gonna lean over the table then. I'm still cleaning my blade. Like not like it's threatening, but I'm not I'm trying to I'm not being outright threatening. I'm just cleaning the blade. And then I kind of take my blade, put it back in, and I lean over the table. Metzos, was it? Metzos is the one who's responsible for all of this?
Jothi Mezzos. Metzos.
Right. Nobody else. Nobody else. It's all been them the whole time. I'm staring right into her eyes and I'm trying to be like kind of I want to say repeat what she's telling me back to her, but in a way that alludes to the fact that I know that she's not being forthcoming.
Okay. So yeah, she starts looking and she's clearly trying to make a defense here. She's I'm gonna make a roll for her. Yeah, ha ha ha. I'm gonna roll my dice secretly. I'm going old school with my dice rolling.
He's cheating. We all see it. It's happening right in front of us.
She seems pretty convincing, but you get a sense like she starts saying it's clear, like, look, there's a smuggler base sometimes near there when they rerouted here, and she starts trying to paint a surprisingly clear picture for somebody who seemed to be getting lost in the numbers earlier. She seems to be very much like pointing out what clearly their operation is working like. He hasn't indicated her connection.
With my low understanding of everything, because I have an understand of 4, I'm actually going to turn to Shara as she's speaking about like the way this all works, and it sounds very meticulous and organized. That's when I turn to Shara just to like kind of nod to her to be like, pay attention. What do you analyze? Because she's much more analytical than I am. And I mean, Marcus, if you have anything as well.
I mean, not anything to interject. He would let you continue this conversation, but he's taking this all in. I mean, it's exactly what he thought. The whole rig is guilty.
I'm turning to both of you guys, just like as she's explaining, and I'm kind of standing next to her, shaking my head, just like trying to listen for something incorrect or for her to fall into a trap of miscommunication.
Given that this is a grave crime, I actually want to turn to Marcus, who, as an enforcer and is one of the soldiers of this whole thing. Marcus, perhaps you can explain what the consequences of this kind of infraction are.
If by infraction, and I will turn over to this pilot here, you mean high treason? Well, of course, I'm sure that you understand, and I'm going to kind of like really let her know that, I mean, this is serious. This is happening. You know, the full implications of what high treason would be. Don't you? And I kind of look back over here at Jarrus one more time.
Yeah, she is at this point wilts, and she says, you know, I admit I took a cut. I worked with them, but Metzos is the ringleader. He merely paid me to look the other way.
And how many on the rig are involved in this? We need an outline. Shard, you have like paper and stuff like that, right? And I guess I don't really know what else to say other than kind of like make like a little gesture to you, like let's get a list going of you know, of everybody.
He
Yeah,
says,
and I think I'll add on top of that and just be like, you know, there is reason for us to let your involvement in this fall under the radar if you give us the names of everybody else involved.
she says, they are all indirectly accomplices. They all allowed the captain to divert. They all paid little attention when smugglers must have taken spice from the harvester. There's no way anyone on the Alberic knows or can turn a blind eye to it or pretend they didn't know what was happening.
And so, Jason, we're not. I mean, like obviously, like great. We've caught them in full treason. Exactly what we expected based off of Shara's investigation into the numbers. And Talia's, you know, has totally worked over this asset. Is we're not expected to come out here and literally deliver justice in the form of wiping out an entire crew. I'm assuming, correct?
Um, that would be something that you could choose to do if you saw fit.
We have the power to do that.
You are agents of the Duke.
So you're telling them players here that the GMs that never get to play that we're totally allowed to just kill everyone in the. No, I'm kidding.
The idea of stopping in and actually murdering a whole harvester full of potentially crooked, highly skilled laborers would be like that would be almost an offense to the emperor. Like, why didn't you just punish them?
Well, that's what I'm asking here. So what would the punishments be? Because I'm kind of under the assumption that that there will be additional forces that we kind of can bring out here that will handle more of a more policey typey work than just our small crew of investigators.
Okay. So then I guess my question would be, since we are at the point where we should really wrap up, you should decide, do you wish to go further out and actually confront the crew of the Alberic? Or would you decide at this point we need to go back, we need to get some soldiers, we need to come and like make arrests all the way around? And what is your role what is your action going to be regarding Jarrus?
I have an idea, and maybe I'll even ask in character. I'll turn to you and I'll say, is it possible that we bring Jarrus in with us and talk to the people in charge and have her confess? And therefore, we can send out a proper squad to apprehend and deal with.
Talia, you are reading my mind. There is no possibility of leaving her at this rig with this admission of guilt. What we need to do is excuse her in some form or fashion from her duties and have her return with us so that we may receive a full confessional and list of accomplices. Shara, do you have any ideas as to how we might not raise any alarms to her absence?
Well, the truth of the matter is that justice isn't always fair. And she has allowed us to uncover the greater crimes that are here. And so allowing that to be done, she will suffer short term and have to be punished, but she'll allow us to mete out the full extent of what is necessary here. I think we should bring her back in and probably order, like, can we order the cessation of this operation and demand that their ship Like, can we say that this carryall and its associated harvesters have to like come back to, like, are we now at the stage you mentioned from the capital we couldn't order it to come back, but now that we're here, can we
You
say,
could.
no, you're coming back now with us?
Okay, you could. The issue would be this would be a tremendous dip in spice productivity right now. And it's already hurting because of the handover. The Harkonnens did everything they could to sabotage spice production on their way out. And so the idea of shutting down a whole carryall, which has multiple harvesters active at any given time, and bringing them all back to the capital would be a phenomenal hit to productivity.
I think we should.
So we would just bring her back.
Yeah,
I think we should take the route of espionage, right? She's sick, hey, she's sick, or we're giving her promotion or something. We don't want to raise any alarms with the other people. I mean, she literally just said, yeah, it's all that guy's fault. So I mean, if we just are like, oh yeah, we're taking you in for question, I mean, we got to be really subtle about this so as not to raise any alarms, and then we could, come back out here. We probably, send spies and cameras and figure out how exactly the smugglers are getting it off planet and stuff like that. So we want to I feel like we want to try to accomplish getting her off the ship without raising any suspicions as to why we are taking this one individual with us.
All right. Well, there are a few looks, but basically you managed to get her to the ornithopter, the equivalent of a inobvious perp walk. And then very quickly after, your pilot begins to take you back to Arrakis, where you will further debrief and make a longer plan. Now, if we were playing this as a campaign or as a longer term game, then we would move into a completely different mode of play, which actually is engaged at sort of operations, where you can actually decide, like, are we going to put assets on the harvester? Are we going to try to do surveillance and all of this? But for the purposes of this very short ModCon demo, we will wrap up with you taking her back and setting in motion plans to bring the guilty to justice and I guess restore spice production to where it should be, so that when the Atreides land, you will have some positive news for the family.
Awesome.
Thank you all. I've got a few minutes more. Are there any questions you guys have, or any comments, or any things you wanted to share or feedback? Because it's the middle of the night here for me. I normally am long in bed by now.
I'll say that I thought this system was really cool. I've never really played a system quite like this one before, and once I got the hang of like how it worked with mixing the drive and the skill, I actually enjoyed the act of deciding what I wanted to do and finding the appropriate drive and skill and seeing if I could use my traits. I really like the way it was structured. I got more into character as we went along, and I think all three of us did. Also, we handled this in a very HR positive way. It was
absolutely.
I would agree.
I mean, considering I'm looking at my stats and my person is all about dirty fighting and stabbing people in the back and all of that, I didn't do a lot of backstabbing. So,
No, but I mean, and that's one thing too. The system can be quite deadly because you basically say, I'm going to murder that person, and that's your goal. And so if you succeed, unless they've got some ways to avoid being murdered, you murder them.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I thought was a lot of fun, and just fun design as a player from my perspective was I loved when you put those two skills together and then somebody else wanted to jump in and aid. You might have picked out something that was really good for your character to approach a task in a certain way, but it may not be a strength on their character sheet, but they're still trying to help. I don't know, that the way that whole mechanic kind of clicked together, and Kelly looked up and was like, oh, I can help you with that. Oh, I don't know if I can help you with that. It was a lot of fun. I thought that's a great mechanic in my opinion.
All right, well, cool. Any last words or anything? I think
thank you
for running this.
We didn't get into any blood duels. No sand or no blood was spilled on the thirsty sands of Arrakis, but there's always another day. All right.
It'll happen next time.
Okay. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Alrighty.
You have a good one.